Stop. Before you scroll past this. Before you close this tab. Before you tell yourself you don't have time for this right now. I need you to hear me. What I'm about to tell you. I have been sitting on this for a long time. Too long. I've been turning it over in my mind, asking myself if I should say it, if the world is ready to hear it, if I am ready to say it out loud. And every time I almost talked myself out of it, something happened that reminded me why I can't stay silent anymore. Because people are suffering. Right now. Today. People who don't have to be. People who are living smaller lives than they deserve. Carrying weight they were never meant to carry. Believing lies they were never meant to believe. And I know something that could change that. I've known it for a while. And I've been quiet about it for too long. So today, that ends. Today, I'm telling you everything. Let me start with a question. And I want you to really sit with it, not just let it wash over you, but actually stop and think about it. When was the last time you felt truly free? Not free in the abstract, political sense. Not free as in, I live in a free country. I mean free in your body, in your mind, in your daily life. Free to do what you actually want to do. Free to say what you actually think. Free to be who you actually are, without performing, without filtering, without constantly calculating how you will be perceived. When was the last time that was true for you? For most people, the honest answer is, I can't remember. Or maybe, when I was a child, before the world got its hands on me, before I learned what was expected of me, before I started shrinking myself to fit into spaces that were never designed for someone like me. And here's what I want you to understand. That feeling, that sense of constriction, of smallness, of living inside a life that doesn't quite fit, that is not a personal failing. That is not a sign that something is wrong with you. That is the predictable, intentional result of a system that was designed to produce exactly that feeling. And that is the secret I can't keep any longer. We live in a world that is extraordinarily good at one thing, making you feel like your problems are your own fault. You're anxious? You need to meditate more, exercise more, eat better, sleep more, stress less. You're broke. You need to budget better, hustle harder, make smarter choices, stop buying coffee. You're lonely. You need to put yourself out there more, be more vulnerable, work on your social skills. You're unhappy. You need to practice gratitude, see a therapist, reframe your mindset, choose joy. And look, I'm not saying none of those things have value. Some of them do. But notice what they all have in common. Every single one of them places the responsibility for your suffering entirely on you. Every single one of them says, the problem is inside you, and the solution is inside you, and the world around you has nothing to do with it. That is a lie. A carefully constructed, enormously profitable lie. Because here's the truth. You are not anxious because you don't meditate enough. You are anxious because you live in a society that has stripped away most of the things that human beings need to feel safe. Stable community, meaningful work, economic security, connection to nature, a sense of purpose that goes beyond productivity. You are not broke because you make bad financial decisions. You are broke because wages have been stagnant for decades while the cost of housing, healthcare, and education has exploded. You are not lonely because you lack social skills. You are lonely because the architecture of modern life, the way our cities are built, the way our work is structured, the way our technology is designed, systematically destroys the conditions for genuine human connection. Your suffering has causes. Real, structural, external causes. And the people who benefit from those causes have spent enormous amounts of money and energy making sure you never figure that out. I want to tell you about something called the individualization of social problems. It's a concept that sociologists have been writing about for decades, but it never seems to make it into the mainstream conversation. And I think that's not an accident. The idea is simple. When a society has structural problems that are built into the way the economy works, the way institutions are organized, the way power is distributed, there are two ways to respond. You can address the structural problems. Or you can convince people that the problems are individual, personal, a matter of individual choice and individual responsibility. Addressing structural problems is expensive and threatening to those in power. It requires redistribution of wealth, reform of institutions, limits on the behavior of corporations and governments. It requires powerful people to give things up. Convincing people that their problems are personal is cheap and profitable. It requires selling them self-help books, therapy apps, wellness products, productivity systems, mindset courses. It requires them to keep working harder within the existing system, rather than questioning the system itself. Guess which approach our society has chosen? We have built an entire industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry, around the idea that the solution to every social problem is personal transformation. Feeling overwhelmed by the demands of modern work, by a planner. Feeling crushed by financial stress? Read a book about money mindset. Feeling disconnected and empty? Download a meditation app. Feeling like the world is falling apart? Practice gratitude. And I want to be very clear. I am not mocking the people who turn to these things. I have turned to these things. When you are drowning, you grab whatever is within reach. And sometimes these tools genuinely help, in the short term, in the way that a bandage helps a wound that actually needs surgery. But the bandage is not the cure. And the people selling you the bandage have a very strong financial interest in making sure you never find the surgeon. Let me tell you about the attention economy, because this is one of the secrets that I think is most important, and most hidden, and most urgently needs to be spoken out loud. Every major technology platform you use, every social media app, every streaming service, every news website, every search engine, is built on a single business model. They give you something for free, and in exchange, they sell your attention to advertisers. Your attention is the product. You are not the customer. You are what is being sold. And because your attention is the product, these platforms are in a constant competition to capture as much of it as possible. Every feature, every algorithm, every design choice is optimized for one thing: keeping you on the platform as long as possible, as often as possible, at any cost. And what keeps people's attention? Not joy, not beauty, not inspiration, not connection. Those things are nice, but they don't keep people glued to a screen for hours. What keeps people glued to a screen is outrage, fear, anxiety, conflict, the feeling that something terrible is happening and you need to keep watching to find out what it is. So the algorithm feeds you outrage. It feeds you fear. It amplifies the most extreme, the most divisive, the most emotionally activating content, because that content keeps you scrolling. And the more you scroll, the more data they collect about you, and the more precisely they can target you with advertising, and the more money they make. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the documented, publicly acknowledged business model of the most powerful companies in the world. The engineers who built these systems have spoken about it openly. The executives who run these companies have testified about it in front of governments. The research showing the psychological harm these platforms cause is extensive and damning. And yet most of us spend hours every day inside these systems, being manipulated by them, having our emotions hijacked by them, having our worldview shaped by them, without ever stopping to ask, who built this? What do they want from me? And is what they want from me good for me? Here is what the attention economy does to your brain. And I want you to really hear this, because I think it explains so much of the collective suffering we are experiencing right now. When you are constantly exposed to outrage-inducing content, your nervous system stays in a state of low-level activation. Your body is constantly producing small amounts of stress hormones. Your threat detection system, the ancient part of your brain that evolved to keep you safe from predators, is constantly on alert, scanning for danger. This is exhausting. It depletes your cognitive resources. It makes it harder to think clearly, to plan ahead, to feel empathy, to experience joy. It makes you more reactive and less reflective. It makes you more susceptible to fear-based messaging and less capable of nuanced thinking. And here's the really insidious part. It makes you feel like the world is more dangerous, more chaotic, more threatening than it actually is. Because the algorithm is not showing you a representative sample of reality. It is showing you the most extreme, the most frightening, the most outrage-inducing slice of reality, over and over again, until your brain starts to believe that this slice is the whole picture. This is why so many people feel like the world is getting worse, even when by many objective measures, rates of extreme poverty, child mortality, access to education, life expectancy, the world has been getting better. This is why so many people feel like violence and crime are increasing, even when statistics show they have been declining for decades in most places. This is why so many people feel like they can't trust anyone, like society is falling apart, like there is no hope. It's not reality. It's the algorithm. And the algorithm is not your friend. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Because the attention economy doesn't just distort your perception of the world. It distorts your perception of yourself. Social media was sold to us as a tool for connection. And in some ways, in its early days, it was. But it has evolved into something very different. A performance platform. A stage on which we are all constantly performing versions of ourselves for an audience, and being judged, in the form of likes, comments, shares, followers, on the quality of our performance. And what happens when you spend years performing a version of yourself for an audience? You start to lose track of who you actually are. You start to confuse the performance with the person. You start to make decisions about what to wear, where to go, what to eat, what to believe, what to care about, based not on what you actually want or value, but on what will play well to your audience. This is not a small thing. This is an identity crisis at civilizational scale. We have created a world in which billions of people are spending significant portions of their waking lives performing for an audience of strangers, optimizing their self-presentation for maximum approval, and measuring their worth in metrics that were invented by engineers at technology companies to maximize engagement. And we wonder why rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness are at historic highs. We wonder why people feel empty and purposeless. We wonder why genuine human connection feels so rare and so precious. We have traded our authentic selves for follower counts. And most of us didn't even realize we were making the trade. I want to talk about work. Because work is where so many of us spend the majority of our waking hours. And work is where so many of the secrets I'm trying to tell you today become most visible. We were told a story about work. The story goes like this. Find your passion, do what you love, work hard, and success will follow. Your career is an expression of who you are. Your job title is part of your identity. Your productivity is a measure of your worth. This story is not just false. It is actively harmful. It is false because the vast majority of jobs that exist in our economy were not designed to fulfill human beings. They were designed to generate profit. And those two things are often in direct conflict. A job that is maximally fulfilling for the person doing it is not necessarily the same as a job that is maximally profitable for the company employing them. It is harmful because when you believe that your job is an expression of who you are, you lose the ability to set boundaries between yourself and your work. You can't say no to unreasonable demands, because saying no feels like a rejection of your own identity. You can't leave a bad job, because leaving feels like admitting that you are a failure. You can't rest, because resting feels like you are falling behind in the race to become the person you are supposed to be. And the people who run companies love this story. They love it because it gets people to work harder, longer, and for less money than they would if they understood their relationship to their employer as what it actually is. A transaction. You sell your time and labor. They pay you for it. That's it. It is not a calling. It is not a family. It is not a reflection of your worth as a human being. The moment you understand that, everything changes. You start to ask different questions. Not am I working hard enough? But is this exchange fair? Not how can I be more productive? But what do I actually want my life to look like? Not how can I prove my value to my employer? But what do I value? And is this job helping me live in accordance with those values? And this brings me to something that I think is the deepest secret of all. The one that underlies everything else I've been talking about. The one that, once you see it, you cannot unsee. We have been taught to measure our lives in the wrong currency. The dominant culture of our time measures a life in money, status, productivity, and achievement. These are the metrics by which we are taught to evaluate ourselves and others. How much do you earn? What is your job title? How much have you accomplished? What do you own? And these metrics are not entirely meaningless. Money matters. Security matters. Achievement can be genuinely satisfying. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But they are profoundly incomplete. And when they become the primary or only way we measure a life, something goes deeply wrong. Because the things that actually make human beings happy, the things that the research on human well-being consistently identifies as the most important predictors of a good life, are almost entirely absent from this list. What makes people happy? Connection. Genuine, deep, reciprocal human connection. The feeling of being known and loved by other people. The experience of belonging to a community. The sense of contributing to something larger than yourself. The freedom to spend time in ways that feel meaningful rather than merely productive. The ability to be present in your own life rather than constantly rushing toward the next achievement. None of these things can be bought. None of them show up on a resume. None of them are measured by the metrics our culture uses to evaluate a successful life. And so we spend our lives chasing the metrics, the money, the status, the achievements, and wondering why, when we get them, we still feel empty. We wonder why the promotion didn't make us as happy as we thought it would. Why the new house didn't fill the hole. Why the number in our bank account keeps going up, but the feeling of meaning and purpose doesn't follow. It's because we've been measuring the wrong things. And the people who profit from our endless striving, the companies that sell us the products and experiences we think will finally make us feel complete, have a very strong interest in making sure we never figure that out. So what is the secret? What is the thing I've been hiding, or rather, the thing that has been hidden from all of us? It's this: the life you actually want, the life of genuine connection, of meaning, of freedom, of presence, is not at the end of the road you're currently on. It is not waiting for you on the other side of the next achievement, the next purchase, the next milestone. It is not something you earn by working harder, or being more productive, or accumulating more. It is available to you right now, today, in the life you already have. But to access it, you have to be willing to stop, to question, to look honestly at the gap between the life you are living and the life you actually want. To ask yourself, maybe for the first time, what you actually value. Not what you've been told to value, not what the culture around you says you should value, but what you, in the deepest and most honest part of yourself, actually care about. And then you have to be willing to make choices that align with those values, even when those choices are inconvenient, even when they go against the grain, even when the people around you don't understand them. This is harder than it sounds, because the system we live in is very good at pulling you back. Every time you try to slow down, there is a notification demanding your attention. Every time you try to disconnect, there is a social obligation pulling you back in. Every time you try to question the metrics, there is a voice, internal or external, reminding you of how far behind you are, how much you still need to achieve, how dangerous it is to stop running. But here is what I know. The people who manage to stop, who manage to question, who manage to build lives that are genuinely aligned with their own values rather than the values the culture has imposed on them, these people are not the ones who had the most advantages. They are not the ones who were the smartest, or the most talented, or the most disciplined. They are the ones who were willing to be honest with themselves and with the people around them. Honest about what they wanted. Honest about what wasn't working. Honest about the gap between the life they were living and the life they wanted to live. Honesty is the beginning of everything. I want to talk about relationships. Because I think this is where the secrets we've been discussing become most personal, most painful, and most important. We live in a culture that is deeply confused about what relationships are for. On one hand, we are told that romantic love is the most important thing in life, the thing that will complete us, fulfill us, make us whole. On the other hand, we are given almost no tools for actually building and maintaining the kind of deep, honest, reciprocal relationships that genuine love requires. We are taught to perform in relationships the same way we perform on social media, to present our best selves, to hide our struggles, our fears, our failures, to be attractive, interesting, successful, put together, to never be too needy, too vulnerable, too much. And then we wonder why our relationships feel shallow, why we feel lonely even when we are surrounded by people, why the person we share a bed with sometimes feels like a stranger. The secret is that genuine connection requires the opposite of performance. It requires vulnerability. It requires the willingness to be seen, really seen, not just the curated version of yourself, but the messy, uncertain, struggling, fully human version of yourself. And vulnerability is terrifying, because when you let someone see the real you, you give them the power to reject the real you. And that is a risk that most of us have been taught, explicitly or implicitly, to avoid at all costs. But here is what the research on human connection consistently shows. The relationships that sustain people, that give people the deepest sense of belonging and meaning, are not the relationships built on performance and perfection. They are the relationships built on honesty and vulnerability. The relationships where both people feel safe enough to be imperfect, where struggle is met with compassion rather than judgment, where the question is not, are you good enough? But, are you real? We are starving for this kind of connection. And we are starving for it in a world that is full of people who are equally starving for it, but who are all performing too hard to let anyone see it. I want to address something directly, because I know that some of you, as you've been listening to this, have been feeling a particular kind of resistance. A voice that says, this is all very well and good, but I don't have the luxury of questioning the system. I have bills to pay. I have people depending on me. I can't afford to slow down and examine my values. I have to keep running just to stay in place. I hear that. I really do. And I want to be honest with you. I am not standing here telling you that the solution to structural problems is individual enlightenment. I am not telling you that if you just think the right thoughts and feel the right feelings, the rent will pay itself. The structural problems are real. The economic pressures are real. The constraints on your time and energy are real. And anyone who tells you that the solution to those problems is purely internal is, at best, naive, and at worst, selling you something. But here is what I am saying. Even within the constraints of your life as it actually is, there is more room than you think. More room to question. More room to connect. More room to choose, in small ways and large ways, what you actually value over what you've been told to value. And those small choices matter. Not because they will single-handedly change the world, but because they change you. And changed people, people who are awake and honest and connected to their own values, are the only ones who have ever changed anything. The revolution, if that word doesn't scare you, has never started with the people who had the most freedom. It has always started with the people who were most awake, who could see most clearly, who were most honest about what was wrong and most committed to something better. You don't need to be free to start seeing clearly. You just need to be willing to look. Let me tell you about hope. Because I realize that a lot of what I've been saying today is heavy. It's a lot of darkness, a lot of systems, a lot of structures working against you. And I don't want to leave you there. Because here is the other secret. The one that gets hidden not by the powerful, but by the cynical. The one that gets lost not in propaganda, but in despair. Human beings are extraordinary. I mean that in the most literal sense. The capacity for compassion, for creativity, for courage, for connection that exists in ordinary human beings, in people like you, in people like the people around you, is genuinely extraordinary. It is the most powerful force on earth. More powerful than any corporation, any government, any algorithm. History is full of moments when ordinary people, facing systems that seemed immovable, changed everything. When people who had every reason to give up decided not to. When the gap between the world as it was and the world as it could be became so unbearable that people stopped accepting it and started building something different. We are living in one of those moments. I genuinely believe that. The systems that have been hidden from us are becoming visible. The lies that have been told to us are becoming harder to maintain. The people who have been isolated from each other are finding each other, recognizing each other, realizing that their private struggles are shared struggles. This is dangerous for the people who benefit from our isolation and our ignorance, and it is full of possibility for everyone else. So here is what I want to leave you with. Not a list of action items, not a 10-step plan, not a product to buy or a course to take. Just this. You already know something is wrong. You've known it for a long time. That feeling you have, that quiet, persistent sense that the life you're living doesn't quite fit, that the world doesn't quite make sense, that there must be something more. That feeling is not a symptom of your dysfunction. It is a symptom of your clarity. It is your deepest self telling you that you were made for more than this. Trust that feeling. Follow it. Let it lead you toward the questions that need to be asked, the conversations that need to be had, the changes that need to be made. And know this. You are not alone in it. The person next to you on the train, the colleague you pass in the hallway, the neighbor you've never spoken to, they feel it too. The longing for something real, something honest, something that actually matters. It is one of the most universal human experiences of our time, and it is one of the most hidden, because we have all been taught to perform contentment even when we feel anything but. Stop performing. Start talking. Start asking. Start connecting. Not the curated, filtered, optimized version of connecting, but the real kind. The kind where you say the thing you're actually thinking. Where you admit the thing you're actually feeling. Where you let someone see you, really see you, and discover that being seen doesn't destroy you. It saves you. That is the secret I couldn't keep any longer. Not a conspiracy. Not a scandal. Not a revelation about some powerful person or institution, though those revelations matter too. The deepest secret is this. You are enough. The life you want is possible. The connection you crave is available. The world you dream of is buildable. Not by someone else, somewhere else, someday. By you. Here. Now. You just had to know that someone else could see it too. Now you do. And now, finally, neither of us has to carry this secret alone.